Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you tonight about toll bridges and border crossings. And we'll give you some information, techniques, and tips about how to do all of that safely so you're not impeding traffic and you're minimizing your border crossings. Stick around. We'll be right back with that information. Hi there, Smart Drivers. Welcome back. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you tonight about tolls, toll booths, toll roads, bridges, those types of things. And we're going to talk to you about border crossings. So we'll give you some information about all of that so you can get across these things and through the tolls and borders and whatnot. So, and minimize the risk with all of that. So if you people are here, if you're just tuning in to the live stream tonight, be sure to let us know where you're tuning in from in the world. All of that's really great. Corey's here, Bricks for Wheels. He's the moderator, and Corey does a really excellent job of getting up the videos that I suggest that you have a look at if you ask me a question. And we're certainly going to do questions and answers after the presentation here. I try and get the presentation up as quickly as possible for those who are watching the replay. And if you're just tuning in, be sure to hit that thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. So Tommy's here. Tanmoy is here. Thank you very much for your compliment there, Tanmoy. That's awesome. Adco is here. Ioku is here. And thank you so much for the contribution. Elevators is here. Hi there. And Ioku passed my road test Wednesday, first try. I had to use the driver's ed car, which was not only a small car compared to the minivan I'm used to, but also an electric, which was weird. Yeah, it would be a bit strange with an electric car. Vinny's here. Akba Immigrants is here. That's really great. And Anita is here. So there's quite a few people here already. Hall Phase is in tonight. And I know Hall Phase, you're going to ask me if I got a video up this week. And unfortunately, no, I didn't. I got the flu, I think, on Tuesday, and I have been out since Wednesday, and I'm just getting back here. So, what is the point of the PowerPoint slides? What is the point? The point of the PowerPoint slides, Hall Phase, is that I do a presentation because there are people who watch the replay, and they only want the information of what the topic is about that I'm talking about for the week. They don't want to go through the question and answer period. So basically I do the PowerPoint presentation for them, and then that way they can follow along with the lesson that I give, and it works well on the replay as well, because as a rule the live streams don't do well on replays here on YouTube. Okay, so that's basically that. Colton is here from Victoria. Colton is that Victoria, British Columbia here. Okay, and Vinny's here from Windsor. Ruth is tuning in from Portland. Elevators is from Indiana. And Washington out here, Wyoming. Adco is from Wyoming. Awesome. And Tommy's from Connecticut, where it would be 9 o'clock, I believe, in Connecticut. Awesome. Love New England. Okay, so we're just going to get going here with the PowerPoint presentation. And I can't answer questions during the PowerPoint presentation because I've only got two screens. So one's on one screen and my OBS is on the other screen. So by all means, keep your questions. I'll answer them. And the other thing is that once it gets busy here with 40, 50 people on the live stream, if I don't answer your question, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's because there's so many questions going by. I do try to answer everybody's questions. So just, remind me that you have a question that I didn't answer, or just retype it, and then that way I'll do the best that I can. Okay, so lots of other people tuning in here. That's really great, and we'll just get over to the PowerPoint presentation here and go through that information. So here we go. All right, so we're talking about tolls and border crossings tonight. I had a request from one of the smart drivers, sent me an email and suggested this topic, and actually after a bit of information, thinking about it a little bit and putting together the PowerPoint presentation, I realized that there was actually quite a bit of information. And for those drivers that hadn't actually encountered toll booths, if you don't live on the eastern seaboard of the United States, or you don't cross the border as a rule, you're going to find it a bit daunting the first couple of times you do it. And I do remember that I was actually fortunate enough that when I started going across the border in the truck, I had another driver that was with me, so I wasn't completely alone and didn't have to figure it out on my own. So Yeah, so lots of information here. Okay, first thing I'm going to tell you, I did get the winter driving course up over at the Smart Drive Test website, and you can see the link right below the PowerPoint presentation here. I'm pre-selling the course. It's almost done. It's about 75% done. There's a couple of lessons that need to be finished up, lesson 3 and lesson 4, but everything else is there. And I'm selling the course for $10. And for the first 100 people that purchase the course, it'll be $10. After that, it's going to go back to the regular price of $37.97. So if you want the winter driving course, head over there now, pick that up for $10 and get into the course, and I'll get the rest of the course finished up for you. So the topics of the course: common crashes, the different types of crashes that you could potentially be involved in, gearing up, what you need to put in your vehicle, and how do you need to fit your vehicle, tires, and those types of things. White knuckle driving, how to drive on ice and snow safely, and then throwing down everything that old man winter can throw down in the wintertime, how to drive when you're tired, how to drive at night, how to drive in deep snow, and how to recover from skids. Also, drowsy drivers rest in pieces, so drowsy and distracted driving, I'm going to talk about that. And then in the final lesson, navigation and route planning as well. So all of that's included in that course as well. There's quizzes, there's a glossary, there's some practice driving test questions, and there's a toolkit. In the toolkit, there's checklists, winter driving checklists, crash checklists in case you get into an accident and you need to collect information from other parties. That's also there as well in the course. So lots of really great stuff, and you can get more information there. Just click the button below and head over to the website and you can see more information about that. So for those of you who are new to Smart Drive Test, my name is Rick August. I started the YouTube channel about 3 years ago, and as some of you know, I was a truck driver in the 1990s. I became a licensed driving instructor in 1997, so I've been a licensed commercial driving instructor since 1997 with an expertise in air brakes. I got my doctorate in legal history in 2006, and for those of you who don't know, legal history is the study of policing, courts, and prisons, and my expertise is in policing as it relates specifically to traffic. And while I was at university, I drove buses for Greyhound. So now, getting into the different types of tolls. So toll bridges, toll roads, border crossings, and ferries. All of these you're going to have to pay to use these services. Bridges, excuse me, I still have a bit of a cough here. So there are bridges, particularly most of the bridges that I'm aware of that you need to pay are the bridges in and around New York City. The tunnels as well. I didn't put tunnels up there, but bridges and tunnels. The George Washington Bridge, the Verrazano Bridge. Those are some of the bridges that you're going to have to pay tolls on. Toll roads, the Jersey Turnpike, for example, there's one in Oklahoma that you have to pay a toll on as well. We have some roads here in Ontario, or in Canada, specifically in Ontario. I'm thinking of the 407, I believe it is, north of Toronto. There's some other ones here as well. Where there's a new bridge, the Portman Bridge in Vancouver has a toll, and we can talk a little bit more about that in discussion after I finish up the presentation here. Border crossings usually have a toll, and then you're going to pay a toll, obviously, to get on many of the ferries. So many of the techniques are the same for tolls as you're going to do for border crossings, and going to be the same for getting on ferries and whatnot. So some of them will have cash baskets. I think these are going the way of the dodo bird. They are becoming extinct. I don't think so much they have the cash basket where you drive by and you throw your change into the catch basket. A lot of these tolls are going to be a person in a toll booth, and you're going to have to stop and you're going to have to pay cash, or you're going to have to pay with credit card or your debit or whatnot. Some of the newer ones actually have license plate readers. I know that the Portman Bridge and the highway in Canada here and other roads, I'm sure, all have license plate readers, and basically they send you the bill in the mail after the fact of you using it, and you need to pay that. And if you don't pay the toll on the road, it goes on to your license, and when you go to register your vehicle at the end of the year, they'll simply collect the fine at that point, add it to your license and insurance. So they get their money one way or the other. So it's probably a good idea to pay. Sometimes you pay when you get onto the toll road or get onto the toll bridge. That's what happens most of the time. Sometimes you do pay when you get off. This bridge here, this is the Lewiston-Queenston Bridge in Niagara Falls, crossing from Ontario into New York State, just around Lewiston, New York, which is near Buffalo. It's not too far from Buffalo, New York. So Bridges are always before. It's always before the George Washington Bridge, for example, and other bridges in the United States. Ferries are always when you get on, and then I mentioned before that they have license plate readers, and they will send you the bill in the mail. So as you're approaching the toll booth, when you're coming up, it's going to be kind of crazy because there's so many vehicles that are coming off the roadway, and they're funneling out into the open end of the funnel. So it's a reverse funnel. And for new drivers, it's going to be a bit crazy because they're like, oh my God, all these cars are jockeying for positions in the line, and everybody going to the toll booth is trying to get in the shortest line because they want to be at the toll booth for the shortest amount of time. So look as you're back and it starts to open up into the funnel, look at the signs over the toll booths. Does the sign indicate the direction where you're going to go? For example, if you're getting on a ferry, are you getting on the right ferry? Are you getting on the Mass Pike, which is the Massachusetts Turnpike here in this sign here? Are you paying cash? Do you have a ticket? Do you have an easy pass? If you're using the same toll booth all the time, you want to consider getting an easy pass, so it's going to save you a bit of money. As well, you're going to scan to see how long the lines are, and you're going to try and get into the shortest line. And some of these toll booths as well are going to have different forms of payment. Some of them are going to have cash. Some of them are going to have credit cards that are going to allow you to do that. And then obviously the Easy Pass as well. So you can see here the sign that says Easy Pass only. So make sure you get in the right lane as well when you're approaching the toll booth. Sorry about that. Page down. There we go. Okay, so that's toll booths, and they're fairly straightforward. There's not a lot of more information you need about that. Now, border crossings are a little bit more technical. Actually, they're a lot more technical in terms of crossing the border. And the first thing I'm going to say is never, never, never have alcohol, drugs, or weapons in your vehicle. Okay, if you have any of those things in your vehicle, it's a recipe for asking to get called in. It's a recipe for getting your car inspected, and when they inspect it, they're going to tear it apart. Something like the terrible things that you see on television. Some places, some state, when you cross into another state, they're going to have foreign plant and animal control, so you're not going to be able to take certain fruits and vegetables across the line and those types of things. As well, before you go to the border, if you know that you're going to cross the border, think about your appearance. Is your hair combed? Have you shaved in a couple of days? Are you wearing decent clothes that don't look like they're all ripped and torn and look like, you just emerged from a Hell's Angels meeting or something like that? So think about your appearance. Think about the appearance of the vehicle. Give it a wash. Make sure it's kind of neat and tidy inside. Make sure that the footwells aren't full of food wrappers, fast food wrappers, and those types of things, and have your passport ready and open to the picture page. Okay, all of this is going to facilitate you getting across the border a lot more quickly when you're dealing with border officials. And as well, know that some of them are going to be fairly terse. They're not going to be pleasantries, and do not exchange pleasantries until after they ask you the initial questions. Okay. As well, when you're going across the border, think about what time of the day you're actually going to cross the border. Most of the time there's going to be waits, especially if you're going across, say, for example, Friday at 5 o'clock. And, can you adjust your time that you're going to go across the border just slightly so that you miss the rush hours? And here, this is a picture in Vancouver, outside of Vancouver, British Columbia, where they have the actual times of how long it's going to take you to get across the border. And if you're crossing the border all the time, so say, for example, you're an American who's working in Canada and you're coming back and forth every day, obviously you're going to get one of the passes that allows you to go across the border without stopping and having your vehicle checked every time. Okay, so you're in line, you're up at the toll booth, it's your turn to go. These are the things that I'm going to suggest that you do to facilitate your going through the border and not raising suspicion with border crossing people. Roll down your windows on both sides. If you have passengers in the back of the vehicle, make sure you roll down that window as well, and roll down your window. Open the trunk, because they're going to look in the trunk, especially if it's American border crossing officials. Take off your sunglasses, and when you get up to the booth, shut off your engine so you can talk to them as well. Just sort of think of the border crossing official who's standing there in the toll booth for 2 or 3 hours, and every vehicle that comes up is sitting there running. There's a lot of pollution around, so it kind of reduces the irritation with the official, and as well, they don't have to yell over you, especially if you're driving a diesel truck or something that's got a loud engine on it. Make sure you shut your engine off, and keep your hands on the steering wheel in plain sight. And as well, when you're approaching the toll booth, make sure that you obey all the speed signs and those types of things in and around the border crossing area. Okay, as soon as you get to the toll booth, hand your passports to the border crossing official. Don't be fishing around in your car looking for your passports. Have them ready, have them open to the picture page. Listen closely to what the border crossing official is asking you, because he or she may not be asking you the questions. They may be asking your passenger the questions. So make sure that you answer the questions as best you can in the shortest possible answer. Most of the questions are going to be yes, no, where are you going types of questions. And we can talk about that a little bit more in question and answers, okay? So, and the officer will also question the passengers as too. So just, if you're not being talked to, do not, if you got kids in the back, don't talk for your kids unless the officer asks you to talk for your kids. Let your kids answer the questions as well, okay? All right, if you are unfortunate enough to be detained at the border and they ask you to go inside for further investigation of whatever suspicion they have, know that when you go inside, again, short answers, just ask their questions, okay? I forgot to put down the points I was going to talk about this. Okay, but basically when you go inside, short answers, answer their questions. If they want to inspect your vehicle, let them go out and inspect your vehicle. You know, don't give more information than what you need to do. They're simply going to go through your stuff. And in my experience, I haven't had a great deal of problems at the borders. I did have a problem at a border where one of my co-drivers was bringing some alcohol back across the border. But for the most part, you know, if you need to be polite to officials, yes ma'am, no ma'am, those types of things. So if you get detained, just go in and answer their questions and whatnot. And you're not going to have a lot of problem, and most of the time they're just going to let you go, okay? So good luck on your road test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. So we'll come back over here and we'll start answering some questions, and I'll just get back over to, there we go. All right. Okay, so we've got some discussion going on here. Thank you. Yes, and Matt is from Wasu. I'm probably not saying that, am I? Ayatku found 4 tolls in Washington State. Yes, they are. Okay, there's the winter driving course. Corey's put that up for you as well. So again, $10 for the first 100 people that sign up for the winter driving course. Timothy, thank you. Yes. Hall phase. He was talking about the course, not tolls. There are some tolls, and I don't know if Sam shows up, he'll be able to tell us what the tolls are now in Washington State. And I need to double check this, but there was a driver that was talking about this, like a commercial driver. So we're talking a transport truck, was saying that the toll to go across the George Washington now is like upwards of $100 US, which is fairly expensive. So yeah, it gets pretty expensive. Adco, I can't get checked out in the store for the winter course. Okay, Adco. Okay. Can you send me an email and I'll look at that as soon as I get done the live stream for you there, and we'll get you going. Odie, thank you so much, Odie. We're really great, and God bless you as well. Okay, Adku, I got betrayed by Wazi and ended up on a photo toll booth after I got lost and had to turn back. Only one direction was told. Yeah, okay, well, unfortunately, yeah, sometimes that happens. You get turned around, you get lost. And this comes down to one of the things with route planning that I suggest is that if you're going someplace, you don't know where you're going, or you got lost, you take a moment and try and figure out where the tolls are and those types of things so you don't end up paying the toll, right? That's a good point. No, I can't haul phase. If there's a toll road, I just suggest that you pay the fine for the toll. Unfortunately, there's not a way, and I know as a Canadian that you take great umbrage in paying tolls. I used to feel that way as well, haul phase. I used to be upset about paying tolls to use roads. But now that I know how much roads cost to construct and maintain, I'm not opposed to tolls. I really don't think that it's unreasonable to put tolls on roads. And here in British Columbia, it was a political decision about 5 years ago to take the toll off the top of the Coquihalla. They put it on initially just to help pay for the road. And actually, I thought it was a poor political decision to take that off because costs money for taxpayers, and especially when we're paying for fuel at the pumps, because a big part of the tax involved in paying for gasoline is paying for roads, and tolls help to subsidize that. So I don't see it as a bad thing. And also, you need to understand that some of these bridges it's an incredible cost to taxpayers over an incredible period of time. And the way that these huge infrastructures have now been have been financed is that the private sector takes on the financing, and then they charge enormous interest to taxpayers over an incredible period of time. I know, for example, that the bridge in Kelowna, British Columbia here was done that way, and taxpayers pay something like $5 a vehicle for 25 years to finance that bridge. So it's a lot of money, and a lot of people, I know that tolls seem unreasonable, but as I said, they subsidize road building and infrastructure programs within our society, and allow us to drive on roads for free for the most part. Okay. Elevators always put the transponder on the windshield. Is that so it gets read correctly? Elevators. Jaden, I'm making my own shirt, but I might make you your own merch, and trying to be nice to you to want me to do that. Well, thank you, Jaden. I look forward to seeing what you got there, because I was actually thinking of embarking on some merchandise. Okay, Odie, to all who benefits for free and learned with Dr. Rick, please return your gratitude by donating to his 100K campaign, which I did. I'll always be grateful. Thank you, Odie, for contributing again, and that was really great, and thank you for the endorsement. Really appreciated. Okay, Matt, Illinois has open road tolling through their iPass system. I ended up paying $20 visiting family over Thanksgiving weekend. Okay, and Matt, did you think that was reasonable, $20 for visiting over the weekend? Janet, do you know, is there a way to look up and find out if there is any of those non-attended toll crossings on your route? Yes, Janet, when you go to Google will tell you whether you're taking a ferry, whether you're taking toll roads, those types of things. So if you use Google, it will give you that information and tell you whether there's a toll bridge, a toll road, or there's a ferry or whatnot. And you can also, I know also on Google that you can use the option to route you around those toll roads and whatnot. So you can do that as well. Okay. Crystal, do you have to have a passport to cross state lines if you're driving? Crystal, no, you don't. Not to cross state lines. You do have to have a passport if you're a Canadian going into the United States, and you have to have a passport if you're an American coming into Canada. It used to be some years ago, probably I think about 10 years ago, you didn't have to have a passport as a Canadian to go into the United States, but now you have to have a passport. And I would just recommend that you not try it without a passport, okay? I know that we have advanced driver's license and those types of things, but a passport is really the accepted international form of identification. So just get yourself that. Okay, Adco, my email, rick@smartdrivetest.com. Okay, rick@smartdrivetest.com. I hate tolls. Okay, Matt. Yes, and just what Matt was saying there. About Illinois, in and around the Chicago area, I-94, there's numerous tolls there. I think there's like half a dozen if you're going east to west through Chicago. There's also tolls there as well. Jaden, and also a Salt Lake City, Utah police officer passed away yesterday, and our condolences to the passing away. Was the officer on duty, Jaden? Okay, yeah, Matt, you hate tolls. Adida, rick@smartdrivetest.com. Corey will type that in for you. Okay. Hall phase. I wasn't telling you how to avoid tolls. I don't know how you can avoid tolls, and I'll tell you a funny story about that. The only way that you can avoid tolls is not to drive on toll roads. That's the only way that I know of, Hall phase. And an example of that, years ago when I was driving truck, one of the ways we went from southwestern Ontario down to New York City was we drove across highway number 17, which goes east-west across New York State, and it runs south of I-90, which I-90 is a toll road in New York State. And one of the dispatchers was talking to me one day about this other driver. His name was Whiskers. Whiskers had a Harley Davidson, obviously that was his nickname, and he said, you know, Whiskers never pays tolls. And of course, at that time, I was up for the challenge. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to pay tolls either. And so I ran into Whiskers one day, and of course, I'm driving all over the place, and I'm trying to avoid tolls. And I couldn't figure out how to get Boston, Massachusetts without going on the Mass Turnpike. And I said to Whiskers, I said, how do you get to Boston? He says, down the turnpike. So it turned out that what the dispatcher had conveyed to me was not true, that in fact Whiskers was paying tolls to get to Boston, because the only way that you could get to Boston was on the Mass Turnpike. So you had to pay the toll. And you know, this was in the 1990s, so this was 30 years ago when I was driving in and out of New York City. And when I was driving in and out of New York City, it was not unusual for me to pay $85 or $90 American for bridge tolls to go in and out of New York City, because you know, the George Washington Bridge, the Verrazano Bridge, and the bridges in it onto and out of Staten Island, all of those were tolls, so you had to pay those. Okay, Chris, I'm a beginner student. What should I be most concerned about on the highway? Okay, Chris, do you have your license or do you not have your license? Just let me know that and I'll be able to answer that question better for you. Matt, I have thought about trying to avoid tolls in Illinois, but I'm afraid I will just get myself lost. Yeah, Matt, it's probably better just to pay the tolls. Yeah, so there you go. Hall Phase, the Mass Pike is one of the most famous toll roads in the United States. Yes, it is. The Mass Pike is probably one of the more famous toll roads down there in the United States. I-90 through New York State is also a toll road. You know, up and down the eastern seaboard, you know, from New York State down through to Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., those types of places, you're going to pay tolls. So know that if you're driving. As well, there's, like I said, there's one in Oklahoma and other places that are kind of peppered throughout the United States. And, you know, we're beginning to see them here in Canada too. You know, Hall Phase, you've got the 407 there in Toronto and whatnot. We've got them in Vancouver. So they're starting to make inroads, pardon the pun here, in Canada as well. All right. Hall Phase, the tolls for the trucks, the company pays for those. It's not the driver. Unless the driver owns his or her own truck, then they're responsible for the tolls. But for the most part, tolls are the responsibility of the company. Okay, so that's how that works. Thanks, Tommy. I'll tell you another story here about crossing borders and how this works in terms of crossing borders. Now, just hold that thought on the border story. I'll come back to that border story in a minute. I want to address a question from a smart driver on the Twitter channel here, and I've got a picture for you. I'll just answer a couple questions, and I'll get to that. Okay, Vinny, do tolls get you faster to your destination? Yes, Vinny, because they're on the major routes and the most direct route to where you want to go. So, for example, if you're coming from Buffalo, New York, and you want to go to Boston, it's almost due east of not Boston. It's due east from Buffalo to Boston, and the best way to get there is on I-90, and I-90 is all toll. So it's a lot faster for sure for you to get there and pay the toll. Okay. Chris, I have my permit. I'm studying at Smith and Solomon trying to get my CDL license. Okay, Chris. Okay, so Chris, are you going for a tractor trailer license then? Is that what you're doing? Okay, Jaden, my dad was being funny. I said, you are lying to me, aren't you? And he said, yes, I am going. I got him saying yes. Okay. Hall Phase, yeah, there you go. Okay, Crystal, you're most welcome. Jaden, I also got a Lamborghini hat. Even better. Who wouldn't want a Lamborghini hat? Bernalyn, hello, sir. Just asking. Sometimes I get confused while I'm. How can I distance gap the car on my rear view? Okay, I think what you're asking me, Bernalyn, is how you can judge the distance of vehicles behind you. Basically, you should have a look at the video on how to change lanes, and that will give you a mirror's perspective, because I don't want to sort of say that, but basically you want to be up in the upper corner with the vehicle sort of taking up 1/4 of the mirror, the wing mirror, and then you know that they're back. But also make sure that you shoulder check before you turn or do a lane change, okay? Those types of things. Okay, Chris, you're doing your tractor trailer license, and what you need to focus on for the purposes of passing your road test, for the practical component, there's 5 components of a CDL license. Turning, shifting, pre-trip inspection, hook and unhook, so coupling, and then backing. Okay, and backing is going to depend on where you're going in the world, which test center you're going to, and what the requirement is for the backing exercise. So, you know, it could be harder or easier depending on where you go for your test. All right. So Chris, so turning, you have to get the vehicle around corners safely. Right-hand turns are going to be your biggest challenge. Turning a tractor trailer unit. Shifting obviously is going to be a big challenge because you're learning to shift a non-synchronous transmission for the most part. I mean, you might be on an automatic, but really you're going to be on a non-synchronous transmission, and Corey will put the video up for you on how to shift a non-synchronous transmission. Pre-trip inspection. For the first 3 or 4 days, it's going to be a bit overwhelming for your pre-trip inspection, but know that after that, nothing changes, and it's just a matter of repetition. Okay, and then couple and uncouple. It's going to be the same. You're going to have to practice that. There's a certain procedure and technique that you need to have in place for hooking and unhooking the semi-trailer. And as I say to students, you know, hooking up a semi-trailer and unhooking a semi-trailer is really easy, but it's also easy to screw up. So make sure you follow your procedures in terms of hooking and unhooking. And remember, when you unhook a semi-trailer, it's LAP, L-A-P, landing gear, airlines, pin. And when you hook up, it's PDA, pin dollies, which is the landing gear, and then airlines. So it's going to be your airlines last when you're hooking up. All right. And that's basically it. And then backing, you're going to have to learn how to back with the mirrors so you can back up safely and figure out exactly what you need to do for the purposes of your road test. So that's kind of in a nutshell what a CDL license is going to consist of. Adita, thanks for the email. I've seen most of your videos and it really helped. Tomorrow there is my road test and I am nervous, so you can tell me how to control it. Anita, just, you know, get a good night's sleep. Deep breaths. Keep saying to yourself, I can do this. You know, go for a short drive in the morning. Are you going, Adita, are you going with a driving instructor, or are you going down by yourself with a family member or your mentor? Just let me know that there. Okay, Dennis, what do you suggest to me if I want to pursue a career in truck driving? Do I need to enroll in a school for actual driving? Yes, Dennis, if you're going to go and get your truck driving license, I would really suggest that you enroll in a driving school. It's just going to be easier. They help people get their license every day, so that's going to be your best course of action in terms of getting your truck driver's license, is to go to a school. The other thing I would say, Dennis, is if you are going to go to a school, pick a school that does one-on-one training. Okay, don't go to a school that moves you around between instructors. It's simply too hard for you to learn how to drive a truck and pass your road test. Okay, go with one instructor. Okay, Adita, so you're going down with your mentor. Excuse me. Vlogs, you are most welcome. Thank you for the compliment there. Okay, and if you're watching on the replay, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, leave a comment down in the comment section there. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please subscribe. So thank you for all of that. And so Adita is going down for driving with her mentor. The other thing, make sure that you do a pre-trip inspection on your vehicle before you go down for the road test, because you don't want to be denied your test because you got a signal light or a seatbelt doesn't work or something like that. So make sure that you do that. And Corey will put the video up for you on the pre-trip inspection before you go down for your road test. Get down there good and early, probably half an hour early. Make sure that you have your paperwork, you have your learner's permit, you have another piece of identification. Make sure you have some money because it's going to cost you money. You go in and check in and then go for a little walk. You know, before you get there, do a little drive and just warm up in and around the area and those types of things. So, you know, those are just some things that you need to do in preparation for that. And, you know, eat some breakfast, get a good night's sleep, and just keep telling yourself that you're going to do it and you're going to be successful, all right? And good luck on your road test tomorrow. Hall phase, where does most of the profit from tolls go to? Most of the profit isn't really profit, Hall phase. Most of it goes into the Ministry of Transportation coffers and pays for maintaining roads, building new roads and bridges and those types of things. Okay, Chris, you're most welcome. Matt, how do you get a passport to go to Canada? Okay, for Americans coming into Canada, or Matt, were you saying as a Canadian, how do you get a passport, or as American? There's a passport office in Canada, and there's a passport office in the United States. You have to apply for a passport, and then there's certain things you have to do in order to fill out the paperwork and whatnot in order to get a passport, and then you have to pay a fee. I think it's about $75 or something to get a passport. Patrick, still in my license, not lost, watching Vikes Packer games. Go Vikings. There we go. So we're watching the game as well. That's probably why the numbers are down tonight. Most people are watching the game. 380, I've never had to cross borders in truck. If crossing in truck for work or rental truck for personal use, will border guards help walk me through it, or do I have to be perfect first time? It depends on where you're going, 380, because I've been across the border a lot because I always drove into the States. There is one form that you have to fill out. And I remember, for a lot of my loads went through Detroit, Michigan, and across at the Ambassador Bridge. Another time I would cross at Queenston Lewis and I'd go back to Detroit. And, there were not very often, but a couple of times, went through the border, and if you don't have the paperwork that you're required as a CDL driver when you're going through the border, they'll take your license and they'll make you park somewhere, and then you have to fill out the paperwork that is required for you to go through the border. If you don't have that paperwork, they'll make you park around the back, and then you got to go inside. And sometimes that happens, and if you don't have the paperwork, the correct paperwork, when you go up, you just say, listen, I need to go inside because I don't have the paperwork, and you'll be assigned a customs broker for a commercial load that you're pulling. We're not talking about personal vehicles here. So if you don't have the paperwork, you got to go inside. You got to go see your customs broker. They will fill out the paperwork, and then you take it down and you fill it out. And that once you go inside, you're looking at probably a good 90 minutes to 2 hours at the border, which is really going to cramp your style if you're trying to get somewhere as a commercial driver. Now, if it's a personal, if you're moving or something like that, then you've got immigration issues to deal with because you're going into the States, and that opens up a whole new can of worms, and that's a lot of stuff that you're going to be dealing with prior to going there. And I know all of this because I immigrated to Australia. I moved to Australia, so I know about all the paperwork, and the paperwork to the United States isn't much different. And I had a friend some years ago who tried to immigrate to the States. She got a job down there, and she was denied. She was sent back, and she had to have another go at it. I think she had to get some immigration experts and whatnot in place. So it can be fairly daunting if you're going down. And if you are going down for a job, oftentimes the company that you're working for will help you out with that as well. All right. Okay. 380, I see truck lanes and checkpoints, but unsure of exact paperwork and procedures required. Yeah, and this is something that I need to work on, is the paperwork that you need to do, 380. And oftentimes, if you are going to go, most of the time your company will give you the paperwork. There is just one form that you need to fill out to go through American Customs. There's another form coming back that you need to give to the officer in the toll booth, and that needs to be filled out. And maybe what I'll do is I'll do an investigation and I'll figure out how to do that paperwork. I got a couple of cousins who are truck drivers, and I can get some information for them. Tommy, I have been studying for my Class B permit. I've been reading the pre-trip inspection. I understand what I'm reading. Excellent. That's great. Hall phase, you're getting your motorbike license. Awesome. That's great. There's some cursory information on pre-trip inspection that's going to help you out. Jason, I failed my driver's test twice. I can only practice driving twice a month because of parents' work schedules. Can I pass the third time with little practice? It's pretty tough, Jason. Is there any way you can get more driving practice? Do you have other family, cousins, relatives, somebody that can help you out with driving? Because, it's going to be kind of tough with that. Okay, 380, rental trucks would not be for moving per se, more so furniture between our two houses, one in Ontario and one in the States. Okay. So 380, if you're moving furniture between a house that you own in the States, you would need proof of ownership of that residence in the States. And you would also need proof, I believe, that you can only stay in the States for 6 months before you have to leave and then come back. I would need to investigate that a little more. Okay, so let me just get over to this other. I just want to talk about this question. I had a question about left-hand turns on Twitter. As I said, from one of the other smart drivers, I got kind of distracted with all the questions there. And I'm just going to talk about this for a minute. So here's the image. and I think you can see my pointer here. And essentially what's happening is the cars are coming out of the parking lot here, and they're trying to make a left-hand turn across a multi-lane road, and it's busy traffic, and there's a left center turning lane here. And if you don't know what left center turning lanes are, Corey will put that video up for you, and I can see here that you cannot see the pointer on the picture. So there's a left center turning lane, and then there's traffic on the other side. And the smart driver was asking me, he says, do I have any tips or tricks for this? Okay, so one of the things that I suggested, first, you need a lot of patience. You have to wait for the opening, because it can be a long time before you have the opening, especially if you have bigger vehicles that don't accelerate well and those types of things. So you need a lot of patience. The other thing is that you can drive into the left center turning lane and then merge into the other lane on the other side, and that's going to help you to be able to make that left turn. And then finally, your third option on this is simply just to make a right-hand turn, go around the block, and then come back. That's the other way to do that. Okay, so first tip, be patient. Second tip, move into the left center turning lane and then merge into the lane on the far side of the road, and then finally make a right-hand turn and come around the block. So those are the ways that you can deal with making a left-hand turn at a major busy intersection. All right. Okay. And we've got some more questions here. Epic, do you usually drive up to a toll plaza on an electronic toll lane? Is it okay to drive over the speed limit for that particular toll lane or follow posted speed limits in toll plazas? Epic, if you're going into a toll booth, follow the speed limits. If you're on an electronic one, like on the Portman Bridge, no, they're not monitoring your speed. They just want to gather your license plate. They know that everybody's doing the traffic flow, so no, they're not looking at your speed there. Okay, Jason, thank you for your videos, Rick. They help a lot. Jason, you're most welcome. Thank you for the compliment, letting us know. Random guy, how do the border crossing people know you've been out of country? What's the rest of the question? Okay, thanks for helping me pass parallel parking. Your videos are very helpful. That's really great. I'm glad that we could help you out, and I'm happy to hear that. Excellent. Okay, so the one other story that I wanted to tell you. Last March break, my two kids and I, and as many of you may or may not know, I'm a single dad, and I've got two young kids, and we were going down to Washington State to help Jen get her license. I was doing an evaluation for her because she had low vision, and I haven't got the video up yet. I need to do that because I've been really tardy on that. So we're going to the States, and me, being in a hurry and 4,000 things on the go, forgot to get the letter from their mom saying that I could take my kids into the States, because oftentimes border officials, if you've got two young children and you're by yourself without the other parent, are thinking that you're taking off and absconding with the children. So goofy me end up at American Customs, the border crossing in Washington State. Were we in Washington State? Or did we go through Penticton? We went through Penticton. So we end up at the border. Of course, they don't have the letter. And the border official says to me, he says, you need to go inside. And so we go inside, and I talk to the customs official, and, yes, sir, no, sir, what are you doing in the States? And I said to the official that I was going down to shoot a YouTube video. Of course, well, then this gets into Hollywood and all of these types of questions and whatnot. And, it came down to one thing after another, which was all kind of funny. And the kid's mom wasn't in the country at the time either. She was overseas somewhere. So we couldn't just call her and have her confirm that, in fact, the kids were with me, and I had her permission to take them into the United States. But I did have their passports. So, there was that. I just didn't have the letter. And so the border official says to me, can I inspect your vehicle? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Here's the key. And so the border official goes out to the car, looks through the car, inspects the car and those types of things, and comes back in. And she says to me, you realize there's empty beer cans under the driver's seat. And I know how bad that seems. It really does. But I said to her, the kids and I collect beer cans to save money to go to Disney. And we've been doing this for years, 3 or 4 years. We've been collecting beer cans to go to Disney. And what happened, and the kids would pick them up. We're out somewhere in a parking lot or something like that, and I just throw them in the car. Well, unfortunately, 2 or 3 of them got underneath the driver's seat and didn't get dug out. So she found these beer cans under the seat. So there's that part of the story, and then the story continued on, and she was asking her supervisor about me going down to do video for my YouTube channel, and so we went down. So she comes back and she says to me, "Oh, normally you're going down to shoot video for your YouTube channel. There's going to be a fee for that because you're working in the States, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Okay, how much is the fee?" And I'm thinking, like $1,200, $5,000, some crazy number, right? She says, "Oh, the fee's $15." Which I kind of try not to chuckle about because it seems like such a low fee. Anyway, after being detained for about 45 minutes and answering questions and seeming like an upstanding fellow, they finally let us go at the border to continue on our trip. And because I kind of thought, oh, they're not going to let us go into the States. So if you're a single parent or you're just by yourself with your kids and you're trying to cross the border, make sure you have a letter from the other parent that allows you to go into the States, okay? So there's my border story crossing, my story of trying to cross the border without the proper paperwork. Okay? Yes, Hall phase. Washington is west of the United States, right? Well, in the United States Hall phase, there's two Washingtons. There's Washington, D.C., which is the capital of the United States of America. Washington, the District of Columbia, which is a federal district, so that none of the states can claim ownership of the U.S. capital. And then there's Washington State, which is on the west coast of the United States of America. Okay? Chris, I have other questions. What companies are best to apply for when you're a new driver? Chris, my suggestion about new companies to apply for are companies that have a mentor program that will put you with another driver for a couple of months and you can work with them and learn how to drive, because that's really going to help you move forward and get on with starting your career as a truck or bus driver. Vinny, thanks so much for that, Vinny. Okay, Matt, I used to collect cans for money when I was a kid. Yeah, and I think a lot of us did. We collect cans so we could make money, right? Hall phase, they are dirt roads, but they're no, we're quite civilized here in the West. Hall phase, it's not all like Ontario. There are Hall phase, and they're periodically monitored by border patrols as well, so know that. Sam here. Hello, Sam. How are you? Sam is with Rookie Auto Driving School in the Bronx, there in New York City. If anybody's taking a road test down there or want a practice driving test, as I recommend to all drivers who are going down for a road test, take a practice driving test. You can get one from Sam for about $20, and it is incredible money well spent. Now, Sam is the one that's going to tell us how much the tolls are on average for the bridges there in New York. How much, Sam? We're talking about toll roads tonight. We were talking about some of the bridges in and around New York State there, or New York City rather. The George Washington Bridge, the Verrazano Bridge, the Tappanzano. What's kind of an average cost for tolls to get across the bridges and through the tunnels there in and out of New York City? Because I haven't been down there for years, so I don't know. I know what they were in the 1990s, but not anymore. Okay, toll roads. Toll roads. Do I have any other stories about toll roads? No, I think that's most of the stories. Now, as a CDL driver, if you're crossing the border, again, yes ma'am, no ma'am, having the proper paperwork filled out when you arrive at the thing, also having your identification when you roll up to the booth, make sure you turn the truck off and those types of things. And if you get pulled in, sometimes you're going to have to go inside to finish up your paperwork. We talked about this briefly before. You're going to have to go and see your customs broker. They'll fill out the paperwork, and then you get downstairs and you get cleared to go through customs. Not until you're cleared can you actually leave customs. Now, if they want to inspect the load and customs has the right to be able to do that, they're going to get you to back into the door, and they're going to go in and they're open some of the freight inside your in your truck. The one experience I did have of that when they did get me to back, excuse me, and they went through the freight and they inspected the freight. They do have tape that says U.S. Customs officials, neon green tape that says that they will tape the boxes back up and those types of things. Okay, what's the other piece that I needed to tell you? Sometimes they're going to search your truck. If they decide that they're going to search your truck, and this was a very, very long time ago. This is when I first started driving truck. The co-driver that I was with brought too much alcohol back through. He thought he was allowed 3 bottles or something, which was crazy amount of booze. And they searched the truck and they found it. So we got pulled in, we got inspected. He was rude and arrogant to the officials, and that's the first thing that when you start being rude to officials, they're going to find a reason to inspect your vehicle. And they finally let us go after a couple of hours of being in there. Of course, I was green as grass. I didn't know anything about driving truck. I didn't know anything about going across the border, how much alcohol you were allowed. And of course, he's just livid all the way back home from the border. I think we were in Sarnia at the time. And I said to him, I said, you're lucky they didn't impound the truck. And, just took your booze, because he was upset because they confiscated his booze. So don't have any illegal substances in your vehicles, weapons, drugs or alcohol. And just on the note of drugs, when you're coming across the border, if you do have medication, make sure that all the medication is labeled. It's prescribed by a medical doctor, and it has your name on it, okay? So know that. All right, so we've got some information here about crossing tolls. Kia says that in Maryland, most of the tolls are on average about $4 American. Sebastian says, I know coming from New Jersey, it's $15 to get into New York. Sam says same thing, it's $15 for a passenger vehicle. Sam, you wouldn't know what it is for a tractor trailer unit. I heard somebody a couple of years ago on one of the social media here say that it was almost $100 for a tractor trailer to go across the George Washington Bridge now. Does that seem right? That seems like a lot of money. I know it was $25 when I was driving in the 90s. That seems like a significant increase. There's more. $15 to cross the George Washington. I paid to get into Jersey. And if you have an easy pass, it's going to be a lot cheaper. Yeah, okay, so Hall Phase. Yeah, it's definitely expensive in and around the New York City area. But again, there's a huge infrastructure and there's a lot of traffic, and it's the same thing as what they did in London, England, where they put a congestion fee in place where it was, I think it's £15 to drive downtown London. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to reduce congestion. And the same thing with the bridges and tolls in and around New York City, as they're trying to reduce the amount of congestion in Manhattan and the boroughs, in the 5 boroughs there in New York, by making the tolls more expensive and trying to deter people from going in and out of the city is essentially what they're trying to do with these tolls there in the United States and up and down the eastern seaboard. Okay? Hall Phase. Yes, they will arrest you. If you're lucky, that's all they'll do. They'll probably confiscate your car as well, and you'll probably spend some time in jail. All right. I'm starting to lose my voice. Yeah, the cold is starting to wear out on me. Okay. Illinois charges anywhere from $1 to $3 for regular cars. You cut the price in half with an easy pass. Excellent. Okay, for the Verrazano, I believe it's $17 with no easy pass. Public transit is more expensive. Yeah, but it's much more convenient. A lot of people in New York City take transit and the subway and those types of things. All right, so one last story about crossing the border. This was when I was a truck driver. And I was working for a moving company, and basically what we did was we went through the states in transit. So essentially you went to American Customs, you went in, you got a seal for the truck, and then you could drive through the states. So what I was doing was going from southwestern Ontario to Sault Ste. Marie, and it's easier to cross at Sarnia and then drive up the peninsula, the Michigan Peninsula, and go to Sault Ste. Marie. It's a lot shorter that way. So this is what we did. So I had this guy with me. He was my swamper. He was the guy helping me. And he neglected to tell me that he had a criminal record, which I find rather interesting, because if you have a criminal record and you go across the border into the United States, American officials can know within 30 seconds whether you have a criminal record or not. However, you go to get a criminal search done by the RCMP, it takes weeks. Sometimes months, but the American officials can figure that out, whether you have a criminal record, within a matter of a few moments. Anyway, he neglected to tell me that he had a criminal record. So we go over to American Customs, and we stopped at Canadian Customs to seal the truck. We had to have the seals put on the truck. We get to American Customs, and American Customs sent us back to Canada. No, they didn't send us back. Sorry, that's wrong. We got to American Customs. American Customs told us to go and park, and the next thing you know, we went inside, and this guy got detained in the back room, and I was like, what's going on? Finally, after a couple of hours of him sort of talking to officials, they let him go with the understanding that we were going to go back to Canada. He failed to tell me that he had a criminal record and couldn't go into the States. So also know that if you are a Canadian, you have a drink driving charge or you have a criminal record, you can't go into the United States. You cannot cross borders. So know that as well, that you can't have a criminal record and cross borders. And we were pretty lucky we got back into Canada they told me that American officials handcuffed him to the door when they found out that he had a criminal record. All right, so we're going to wrap up here. We'll just take a few more comments. Iotku, $8 to $5-ish for toll bridges. I went over in Washington State, so there you go. So Washington State has some tolls as well. Excellent. Sebastian, the plan has not worked reducing congestion. It just made people spend more, especially if you travel from New Jersey to work or attend church in New York. Yes, bad idea. Yeah, it's costly. It's expensive to live there. Sam, I never get paid to get into New Jersey from the GW. How long ago did you do that? Okay, Jaden, the school bus on the shelf in the morning. My school bus overheated and broke down. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yes, that's true, Hall Phase. You cannot cross an international border. You can't travel internationally if you have a criminal record. Other countries don't want our criminals. Matt, since September the 11th attack, border crossing security measures have increased a lot. Yes, they have increased a lot. Jerry, toll bridge in Washington State. Okay, trucks are charged cash tolls of $20 per axle for the George Washington Bridge, apparently. That sounds about right. So 5 axles is $100. I did hear that. Near Tacoma, the last time about 2 weeks ago, I never heard of paying leaving New York. Yeah, it's only going into New York that you're going to pay. Sam is correct on that. I do remember that you only pay going in. You don't pay coming back out. All right, so we're going to wrap it up there for tonight. That's really great. Thank you so much for everybody who attended. Your questions, it's always great, the questions and answers, and I hope that there was some great information there about crossing international borders, crossing toll booths and those types of things, especially for new drivers who haven't been initiated in that aspect of driving. And a lot of this applies if you're going to get on ferries and those types of things. Washington State has ferries. Here in British Columbia, we have ferries out to the Gulf Islands. And the Gulf Islands, they're called something else in the United States, and it just left in my head. Okay, so... yeah, okay, Halt Phase, that's a pretty esoteric topic, but I'll give it some thought. And if you're new to Smart Drive Test, be sure to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and leave a comment down in the comment section. And again, the winter driving course is $10 for the first 100 people that enroll in the course. So click down the link there and head over there and sign up for the winter driving course, and we'll see if we can get the payment figured out for you there. Okay, so thank you again for everybody that showed up. If you passed a road test in the last week, congratulations. And if you have one coming up, good luck on your road test. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. Bye now.